Yeah, my name's Richard. I am the CEO of a company called Released. It is our first time here at the conference. I'm really enjoying it. And yeah, today I'm going to talk to you about how to measure attention in PR. And this all came about from a bit of a personal story, really, in that as I've grown a bit older, I'm sure like many of you here, I'm finding it harder and harder to actually pay attention to things for sustained periods of time. And it affects your productivity and ability to get into the flow state and all sorts of things. And also, I have a couple of kids, and my oldest daughter is 10, and she loves nothing more than kind of curling up with a book. And I look at her and I think, how are you still on the sofa in hour 2 doing the same thing as you were doing a couple of hours ago? And as a parent, I kind of think, will that still be the case in 3 or 4 years when the modern world kind of comes for you? And so I decided to explore the topic of attention a little bit further. And it was really interesting. So uncovered the attention economy and learned a lot about that. And that got me thinking about how the PR industry fits into the attention economy. And it turns out it plays a really pivotal role. And out of that actually came a couple of new metrics that will help PR people actually measure attention for what I think is the first time, and we'll talk about why that is so important in the modern era. So again, it all comes down to this key question: why is it so hard to pay attention? And part of this journey, obviously read a lot about the topic. I don't know if any of you have come across this book at all. I really recommend it. It's by Johann Hari, and it's called Stolen Focus: Why It's So Hard to Pay Attention, or Why You Can't Pay Attention. So interestingly, as part of his story, the author finds himself overwhelmed by modern life, distracted all the time, unable to pay attention. So what he does is he takes himself away from city life, deposits himself in a very secluded seaside town, and goes completely cold turkey, no technology whatsoever. And after a rather painful period of detox, he finds himself able to reconnect with himself, the community, and starts to write really productively, and realizes that really his focus is still there. It's just kind of being taken away from him on a day-to-day basis. What's more interesting is when he returns to normal life, like fully armored up, thinks he's learnt from his experience, within about a week, he's basically back to square one, completely overwhelmed and distracted and kind of more hooked than ever. And here's one of his key conclusions. He says, the phones we have and the programs that run on them were deliberately designed by the smartest people in the world to maximally grab and hold our attention. Now, we experience this on a day-to-day basis. Who amongst us has not been scrolling and scrolling and scrolling? And you consciously thinking, I am not enjoying this. I want to do something else. I'm going to put the phone down now. And 5 minutes later, what are you doing? The same thing. It's really, really strange sensation. And it goes back to what I said. These technologies have been deliberately designed by really smart people to capture and hold our attention. And here is the patent for infinite scrolling. So look, here is Ava Raskin. I don't know if any of you have heard of him. He was very prominent in tech when social media came on the scene, and he kind of popularized infinite scrolling, realized how damaging it was to society, and now he's the co-founder of the Center for Humane Technology. And here's what he says about this. He says it's as if they're taking behavioral cocaine and just sprinkling it all over your interface, and that's the thing that keeps you coming back. So this is being done to us on purpose. Now, I've really enjoyed being at this conference. Hope you enjoy this talk, and I'd like to kind of have a chat with a few of you afterwards. Now, what just happened there was a perfect illustration of something which is really key to this presentation. There's a busy image on the screen, a bunch of text. I'm talking to you, probably didn't take any of that in, right? Very common, often see it during agency pitches. Look, the key point here is there are actually many things we could pay attention to, but only one thing we can actually pay focused attention to at any given time, and that is a really key point that underpins what comes next. So look, what is attention briefly? It's described as a finite cognitive resource that must be allocated across competing demands. Something twigged by this guy, Herbert Simon, 55 years ago this year. He is an esteemed psychologist and economist, and he coined the term the attention economy, which is a framework for understanding how the commodity of attention is distributed and utilized. Which got me thinking, well, 55 years later, how is our attention being distributed and utilized? Let's take the perspective from some of our fellow industries. Do any of you recognize Marina Hyde? She's a brilliant Guardian journalist and podcaster. And on her podcast, here's her perspective. She says, what publishers really want is viewership or eyeballs, aka our attention, but they're going to translate that into subscriptions or, in the case of Guardian, donations. So they want to harness our attention, but then kind of monetize that through donations. And from the perspective of advertisers, here is Mike Follett. He is MD of Lumen Research, an ad tech company, and we're going to come back to him later. Here's what he says. The more engaged you are with the video or newspaper article or whatever, the more attention you give to our ads. So publishers are fighting for our limited attention. Advertisers are fighting for our limited attention. So I think it is time to take the gloves off, because we need that attention as an industry to do our job. That is an undeniable fact. We need that attention to build brands. We need the attention to influence buying decisions, to generate leads, to shift tickets, and to protect reputation amongst many other things. So really, whether we like it or not, or whether we think about it or not, we are in a battle for attention. And the fact is, it is a zero-sum game, because what I mentioned before, we can only pay our limited attention to one thing at a time. So far, I hope that makes sense. So we've established there's an attention economy. It existed for a long time. It obviously existed way before 1971. And hopefully a bit more of an understanding of how we're kind of beginning to slot into that attention economy and the vital role that PR plays and the importance of grabbing that attention. So a fair question to ask is, well, can we actually measure our ability to capture attention? So there's a lot of really compelling research going on in this field at the moment. Much of it is not relevant to PR, but some of it overlaps with online editorial content, which is kind of the bread and butter of a lot of media relations these days. For example, attention paid to articles actually increases with word count up to around 4,000 words where it tapers off. And also, about a quarter of people don't reach the bottom of any article whatsoever. There's lots and lots of research around this topic. So what we decided to do is take the relevant parts of that research and create our first attention metric, which currently sits in our product, Released. So Released is a platform, just for context, that PR agencies use and in-house teams to create visual reports that showcase all different types of coverage, plus all of their supporting activities and narrative, events and content, plus a wide range of analytics as well. So this is how this slots in. So attention earned is measured in hours, and it estimates the amount of focused attention captured by, at this point, online media coverage. And I'll illustrate how this works in practice. So PR teams would log into our platform, and the way they get coverage into it, so they go to their media monitoring platform or coverage tracker, and they take the relevant links and they paste it into our platform. And then it fetches all of the coverage, visualizes it, and analyzes it in different ways. Now, one of the things we now analyze is we estimate how many seconds of focused attention that article is likely to get based on the research I just cited a moment ago. We also have this metric we've had in our system for a long time, coverage views, which a lot of you are familiar with. So now we know how many times that article was viewed. And we run that for all of the coverage on the page, and that gives us our total attention earned for that report in hours. And if you'd like to know how that's calculated, attention earned in hours equals attentive seconds per article. So think about one person focusing on the article once, times the number of people that have seen that article, divided by 3,600 to give us our attention earned in hours. So how is this metric being used right now in the field? It's being used in lots of different ways. First of all, obviously, it's being used to prove that PR can actually capture attention and do so at scale to stake its place in the attention economy. It also, in addition to helping you give that total figure, you can actually analyze which specific pieces of coverage got different levels of attention. You can obviously track attention over time, so we're proponents of using metrics not only for their absolute value, but just to see trends as well. You're capturing more or less the same. And also you can benchmark different campaigns as well. So look, before we go to the next section, let's again take a step back and remind ourselves that this is all about our place in the attention economy, how attention is being exchanged between different parties. So another fair question is, in this context, if attention is a commodity, which it is, how much does it cost? That is actually a very difficult question to answer. Very, very challenging. Let's take some examples. Let's say you work in the direct mail industry, which has been around for decades, if not centuries. You know how many leaflets you've printed, and you kind of know how many doors they've gone through, but what happens once it goes through that letterbox? You have absolutely no idea. What about if you do a Super Bowl ad? You know you're potentially going to reach a huge number of people, but how many of those people are having a beer, talking to their friends, doing whatever people do during the Super Bowl? I don't know, I've never seen it. And also, let's take the digital ad industry. Obviously, they know how many impressions they're buying, how many times their ads are served, but they have no idea how much focused attention those ads are getting until now. Because there are lots and lots of interesting things going on in that particular industry, and I'm going to ask you to bear with me and have an open mind during this section, because we are going to explore what's going on in advertising, but I think it's really, really relevant. So as you can see here, the advertising industry is looking to move away from impressions-based model towards attention as its core methodology. You can see here at Marketing Week saying attention is advertising's currency. Let's agree on its value. So they're actually quite advanced here. In fact, the Attention Council said viewer attention will inevitably become the new gold standard for media buys. So this is happening, we're taking this very seriously. And it's all been underpinned by some really interesting new technology, which does this. So remember I spoke about Mike, the MD of Lumen Technologies, an ad tech firm, briefly. We got his perspective on attention. Well, Lumen essentially recruited a 1,000-strong panel, and they turned their webcams and the cameras on their phones into very, very accurate eye tracking technology. They then recorded what they were looking at on the screen, and they calculated which ads were viewable, which ones were actually viewed, which is the key difference here, and for the ones that were viewed, how long were they viewed for? And that enabled them to basically create these kind of attention funnels for different types of ads. And again, we're going to talk in a moment how this is pertinent to PR. And finally, what's happening now is these rate cards are being published for the first time, which essentially say, here's how much it's going to cost you to purchase attention using different ad types, different contexts, etc. I'd like to thank Ubiquity for letting us use their data in our attention measurement. So we now know how much attention has been captured in PR through our attention earned metric we mentioned before. And the key thing is that we know that our attention was earned, and I would say in this day and age, hard earned, right? Because we get our attention through storytelling, through our relationships, And just through the skills and craft of being PR practitioners and persuading gatekeepers to share our messages without any media budget. So the second metric we've introduced is called attention cost estimate. Attention cost estimate, and it's a currency figure. It is the media spend required to capture the same amount of attention as PR as we get without any media spend whatsoever. And here's how it's calculated. ACE equals the attention earned figure converted to seconds times the cost per 1,000 attentive seconds, which we get from those rate cards, divided by 1,000. And here is how ACE has been used for the last 12 plus months by our customers. They are using it first and foremost to demonstrate that PR can capture attention without requiring any media spend whatsoever. That's kind of what earned media is all about. They are using it, especially in-house teams, to compare the cost effectiveness of PR versus adjacent marketing disciplines who are fighting for the same budgets but need a media budget. They're using it to benchmark costs over time, across different reports, across different campaigns. They're benefiting from increased accuracy because there is so much going on in this industry at the moment that we're completely unaware of, so much data being produced. So we're able to leverage that and improve these metrics over time. So in summary, about these metrics, you've got attention earned, which proves that PR can capture attention at scale, which is absolutely key in the attention economy, because without attention, we as an industry would not exist. An attention cost estimate highlights the ability of PR to capture attention cost effectively. So this is actually not theory. This is being used and has been used, as I said, by agencies and in-house teams all around the world for over 12 months in all different types of PR reports. We're getting really good traction from the community about this. And also, kindly, Steph has allowed us to use her quote, although you didn't give me permission to animate you in like that. I hope you're okay with that. So we're really excited about this. So obviously, we're just at the very, very beginning, the inception of attention measurement. We'd really like this to become part of the conversation and share our learnings with other teams as well. So to conclude, here are 5 reasons why we believe, and obviously a lot of the customers we work with believe, that attention measurement really matters in PR. Firstly, whether we like it or not, we, everyone in this room, and obviously the wider industry, we are battling the smartest people in the world for a finite resource, which we need in order to exist and do our jobs. So we need to at least be talking about this and starting to think about measuring it. This is something that we just don't recognize enough or celebrate enough. We earn our attention. It is essentially our USP as an industry, isn't it? It is amazing we can persuade gatekeepers to write our stories just through our craft and skill. So attention measurement really starts to highlight that. Whether we like it or not, again, other marketers are thinking about this and they're measuring it right now. We can already prove with these metrics that we can capture attention at scale and that we can do it cost effectively. And finally, we need to move on beyond basic metrics, legacy metrics like coverage views, reach, and the metric whose name I shall not speak. And I would like to address this now. So, look, many of you are probably thinking, you can't come to an AMEC conference and compare PR with advertising. But I think it depends on the context in which you do it. What you can't do, and we all agree with this, is you can't say, look, here's the space of an article, here's how much it would cost to advertise in that space, which you can't do. Now let's times it by 3 for no good reason, because we're 3 times better than PR advertising. And let's call that the value of PR. That is flawed from bottom to top. We totally agree. We've never used AV in our metric, believe me, despite hundreds, if not thousands of requests from our customers, and we never will. But look, as I said at the beginning, we're part of the attention economy, whether we like it or not, and other industries next to us are battling for this attention. And they're kind of ready, they're already measuring this stuff. And they're publishing their data. They're telling us they're doing it. And they keep publishing more and more data. So when it comes down to it, we really have a choice. We can either bury our head in the sand and be caught by surprise by clients in a boardroom or whatever when they start talking about this stuff. Or we can look up and we say, look, this is really important. It's an interesting, novel way of thinking about PR, and we should embrace it. And obviously we sit in the latter camp. So look, I'd like to thank you for your attention. And we finished a bit early, but I would welcome any questions. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Richard. That was great. AVEs are dead. Long live ACEs.
Oh, I hope so, yeah.
Who has some questions for this man over here? Thank you. Callum's just coming around with the mic.
Thanks very much. Brilliant presentation. Really enjoyed it. Thank you. Anna Salter from Inclusive. I love the fact that, first of all, you've done a complete flip on its head, the concept of AVE. And the reason it's a complete 180 is because you're using PR as the benchmark for the other marketing disciplines. So congratulations. That's great. My question is, are your clients who are using ACE, etc., are they mentioning that they're getting pushback in the boardroom or wherever they're presenting this data from the other marketing disciplines?
Not at all. Quite
from the ad guys who've got all their big numbers?
Quite the opposite, actually. I think before Founding released about 10 years ago, I used to work in PR myself. And I've always had the feeling that we're always on the back foot when we're in these big marketing meetings with clients or whatever. And other disciplines, they tend to kind of be a bit sharper, have a few of the kind of cooler metrics and be a bit more robust. And that just hasn't changed. So the customers we speak to are just desperate for more evidence that PR is working, whatever that is. So a couple of examples would be, there was a client recently, a big drinks global client, you probably would know the brand, and the head of comms was in a meeting, a big marketing meeting, and another team started talking about attention measurement, and she kind of scrambled and she went, oh, we're doing this already, we're actually doing this already. And it was one of the first times she said where she actually felt like she was one of the leaders in terms of measurement. So there has been no pushback so far. Look, my personal view, and I've written about this, is that people are only using AVE because it's got a pound or dollar or euro sign in front of it. I've never met anyone who likes it, ever. They're kind of embarrassed to be using it, right? We've all had these conversations. So as long as we do our job and properly educate people and set the context as to how this is different and how to explain it, which we're doing through white papers, etc., and videos, then I just think it is a win-win for all parties. So far, so good.
Thanks for your question, Anna. We've got we've got loads here. The guy at the back first, and then we've got the lady down here. Oh, and over there. And Martina as well.
Thanks, Richard. This is more of an appeal than a question. Can you find another acronym? I've spent 16 years trying to persuade people that AVE is dead, and I'm just going to have to be so clear in my diction if I start talking about ACE.
Do you know what? Off the record, we spoke to Richard Bagnall about this. We've taken advice from lots of industry people about this. It was originally called something, it was called attention cost equivalency. And rightfully so, that went straight in the bin. So look, I think, again, it is all about education, about explaining it. Call it attention cost estimate, if you will. But I think we're landed on the name for now, unfortunately.
Sorry, Martina. There's a question down here.
Well, thank you for the presentation. It's been really good. I have two questions, actually, if I may. The first one's about the platform, and the other one is about the formulas. So I can upload a link to your platform, and it will give me back the metrics. What if I have 1,000 links to upload?
Yeah, so
Sorry, I can, like, is there some sort of Excel file I can upload and stuff? Or?
no, so the way it works is we tend to work with teams who have a bit of a messy reporting process. So PowerPoint decks, spreadsheets, media monitoring dashboard. And the pain they have is it's a very manual and time-consuming process to produce a report that is kind of underwhelming. So instead, they log into our platform, and to your point, they'll just like copy 1,000 links to their clipboard and paste it into our tool in one go, and it goes off and it fetches all of the coverage. That's part of what it does, and it does this measurement automatically. But the key thing is they have complete control over which metrics they include and which analytics. It's all about control. So if you don't want to use attention measurement, you don't have to use it. If you've got a client who likes it, another client who doesn't, absolutely fine. So conceptually, that's how that works. It's about streamlining that process.
All right. And one more about the formulas. The first one is divided by 3,600, and the second one is divided by 1,000. Are those numbers based on the research you've done? How are those?
Those are just conversion metrics to get it to like hours or pounds or et cetera, the right currency value, because some things are measured in attentive seconds. We've got to get it into hours. Some things are measured in pence, for example, we've got to get into pounds. So there's nothing special about those numbers. It's just we wanted to be transparent about the formula that we were using. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We've got two more questions, one here, Callum, and then down at the front.
Hi, thank you so much. My question is more around the research,
Yeah.
I think that you were speaking to that Lumen conducted, and I'm hoping you can expand on it a little bit more to understand where the panel was sampled from, and obviously with how quickly attention economy is continuing to change and shift, and probably the less that frequent that we're even looking and paying attention to things. Is there plans to reconduct the research at a certain frequency over time?
Yeah, so what I know about the panel is that over 1,000 UK-based people. That's as much information as I've got on that right now in my head, but I can get back to you on that. It's all published research. And in terms of research, so at the moment, our attention measurement is focused on online editorial coverage, because that's where the bulk of the research is. There's less around like social media, like earned social, earned broadcast. So that is really exciting to us. So we're kind of working on those at the moment, as well as some obviously geo stuff, which I'm not going to talk. I haven't mentioned AI, by the way, today. Giving you a bit of a break. But yeah, there's so much opportunity, there's so much data out there. Actually, our job was to really be disciplined about what data is actually relevant and credible, and what just like looks interesting, but when you look into it is actually not that relevant. So that's kind of where we focused at the moment.
Thank you. And one final question down the front here.
Thanks, Richard. It was such a great presentation. I'm Terry Kelly with Total Reputation.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you're thinking about this, but I'd like to... First of all, the metric is fantastic, and I can see the value in it. But if anything, it possibly undersells what PR is able to achieve. Not only are we free, we're earned, but PR also earns more credible and trustworthy response and perception.
Yeah.
So how are you considering what's going on behind the eyes in terms of what people are thinking and feeling about what they're attending to?
That's such a great question. And I think attention, if you think about the kind of customer journey as a funnel, it's obvious that attention is the prerequisite, right? Without that, the rest of the funnel collapses. So obviously I haven't mentioned it, but within the product, the reason why we're at AMEC this year is because we invested really heavily in analytics that map out the rest of that customer journey. So like, what do you do with that attention once you have it, which these metrics purposely do not speak to, because we don't want to talk about the value of PR being wrapped up in attention. That's not where the value is, right? So things like key message analysis that's showing, okay, we've got the attention, but here's proof that our key messages are actually coming through. perception analysis we've introduced, which is, has got a sprinkling of AI in it, which indicates, okay, how would the average reader likely think about or perceive your brand based on the online coverage we've generated. And memorability, which is something we've been working really hard on as well, because it's so important to realize that the life cycle of PR goes way beyond just the few seconds or the minute that someone might pay attention to a piece of coverage, because you want them in 6 weeks or 6 weeks' time, 6 weeks or 6 months, to think, I remember that article, and this brand was mentioned a lot, and it was really positive, and it sounded like a really luxurious or affordable, whatever it is, brand. I'm going to have a look at them now. So that's kind of, I think, where it fits into the funnel. And hopefully that kind of answers the question, but I think I've gone a bit over now. Thank you very much.
Brilliant question. Thank you.